Hey guys, what is going on? Wrestling fans, I'm going to give you the 12 greatest wrestlers that you might not have known that have passed away. So we're going to go with number 12, Chris Candido. Now, Chris Candido was 33 years old when he passed away. He had a brief run in the WWE as Skip, a character focused on fitness and bodybuilding, along with his manager and real-life girlfriend, Sonny. Although his run was brief, his death was extremely shocking to the wrestling community as it came from a complication brought on by surgery that he recently underwent to repair a broken leg. The surgery caused a blood clot which spread to his lungs and eventually it led to him contracting pneumonia. Candido would eventually succumb to his illness 4 days later. After his initial injury, he was only 33 years of age. Next, we're going to go to Reid Flair. Now, Reid Flair never made it to the WWE, therefore he never really got the attention that his extremely famous father did. But serious drug dependency ended the life of Reid at the young age of 25 years old. Prior to Reid's death, some people probably never even knew that Rick had a son, so when the news circled the presses, it was an absolute shock to everyone. Reid's name was recently used in a controversial angle between Paige and Charlotte Flair on Raw, which some fans felt crossed the line between reality and kayfabe. The cause of death was linked to habitual use of black tar heroin. One of my all-time favourites was Big Boss Man. It's not common for wrestlers with over-the-top gimmicks like a police officer to have two separate runs of success in two different eras of the WWE, but the Big Boss Man defied those odds. A moderate fan favourite of the late 80s, early 90s as a man of the law, the Big Boss Man sidewalk slammed his way from mid-card status all the way to duking it out against Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. And a decade later, after brief stints in Japan and WCW, he'd find himself at mid-card status yet again as an enforcer of sorts for Vince McMahon's corporation stable of the late 90s, early 2000s. Inside the ring, he helped push the careers of many of the younger talent on the roster, or helped them get over with fans at untelevised house shows across the United States and Canada. The Big Boss Man would retire from professional wrestling in 2004, mere months before his death from a heart attack at the age of 41. Road Warrior Hawk, possibly one of the greatest tag teams in wrestling history. He was best known to current fans for his few stints in the WWE. Hawk enjoyed plenty of success with his tag team partner Animal, and together they would win a variety of tag team championships across every major wrestling promotion. While their gimmick inside of the ring was to be that of intense, no-nonsense bruisers, this didn't exactly stop them from carrying that over into the real world. It certainly wasn't a rare occurrence for Hawk to have a few too many beers at a bar while on the road, which would often at times lead to an inevitable bar fight. Toward the end of his career, the WWE forced a storyline onto him based on his real-life alcoholism, which made him undeniably uncomfortable, and Hawk quickly quit the company after his controversial murder at the hands of new Legion of Doom member Puke, which was Darren Drozdoff, on Monday Night Raw. In October of 2003, while moving into his new condo in Florida, Hawk felt tired and went to bed, where he sadly suffered a heart attack in his sleep. Sensational Queen Sherri, a true icon for women in professional wrestling, Sensational Sherri Martello was the perfect embodiment of what it meant to be a wrestler. A terrific talker on the mic and an in-ring ability that could match any man. Sherri was a groundbreaking female talent throughout the 80s. Many current fans of the WWE have only known her simply as a valet for WWE superstars like Shawn Michaels and WCW tag team Harlem Heat. But Sherri had the heart of a true WWE champion from a very early age. Dominant in the women's division, she trailblazed the way for every WWE diva on the roster with her charisma and persona. She had a great deal of success throughout her multiple decade career as both a wrestler and later as a valet manager. And once she started to wind down around the mid-2000s, she was honoured with the distinction of being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2006. It would only be 14 months later that she would pass away while at her mother's house in Alabama from a toxic overdose of various drugs, including oxycodone. She was 49 years of age. Mike Awesome was best known for his ECW title reign in the late 90s. but he also had a string of runs with WCW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and a short stint with the WWE. Although built with large physique, Mike Awesome was very agile and oftentimes would launch himself over the top rope to the outside of the ring to a large number of opponents. His trademark finishing move, the Awesome Bomb, was a devastating powerbomb that frequently performed off the top rope. Unfortunately, his career came to an end. Mike Awesome was found dead in his Florida home. Brian Pillman was one half of the WCW tag team, the Hollywood Blondes, in the early 90s, along with some other guy named Steve Austin, whoever he is. Anyway, Brian was a charismatic wrestler, known at the time as Flying Brian Pillman, but he would later rebrand himself in the WWE as the Loose Cannon, which was a persona that may have inadvertently kickstart the infamous Attitude Era. On November the 4th, 1996, episode of Monday Night Raw, a very controversial angle, that very same Steve Austin from WCW, known as Stone Cold Steve Austin now, and Brian Pillman found themselves in the middle of a standoff at Pillman's house in suburban Cincinnati. Stone Cold was attempting to break in Pillman's front door when the camera panned over to Pillman, who was armed with a 9mm Glock and was ready to shoot the intruding Austin. Just as Austin successfully broke into Pillman's house, however, the camera's feed cut out. As a result of this storyline, Vince McMahon had to publicly apologise for potentially crossing over what many considered to be the line. Shortly after the storyline was tossed, Pillman would continue to feud with Austin throughout 1997, this time as a member of the Heart Foundation, but he tragically wouldn't live to see 1998. An undiagnosed congenital heart condition that also claimed his father ended his life at the age of 35. Miss Elizabeth. Once a prominent figure throughout the late 80s and early 90s with the Macho Man Randy Savage in the WWE, Miss Elizabeth seemed vanished from the face of the earth once she left wrestling scene. Not much is really known about the events leading up to her death other than the fact she was found unresponsive in the home of Lex Luger. Toxicology reports showed the cause of death to be drug and alcohol related, which is unfortunately extremely common in the case of most people within the wrestling industry. She was only 42 years of age. Test Andrew Martin. Now, Test had all the attributes of a WWE superstar: size, strength, and the physique, you name it, he had it. He also had a brief run at the top of WWE where he was this close to marrying Stephanie McMahon right up until it was kayfabe. Triple H had already stolen her heart, to say that the least. Test would never again achieve the height he once had in those few fleeting moments at the top of the WWE. After retiring from professional wrestling at the age of 33, his neighbours in Florida alerted the police that they were concerned about seeing him motionless in his house, and it was confirmed that Test had died from a drug overdose shortly before he would turn 34 years of age. Giant Gonzales. Easily the biggest man to enter the squared circle, Giant Gonzales had an extremely short run in the WWE, 2 years approximately, but had a feud with The Undertaker that culminated at WrestleMania 9. In fact, that match was the distinction of being the only match during The Undertaker's impressive WrestleMania undefeated streak to end by disqualification. Giant Gonzales suffered the same affiliation that Andre the Giant and Big Show also suffered from, acromegaly, I think it's called, which accounted for their extreme and unusual size. While the Big Show had surgery to stop his growing while a teenager, Giant Gonzales never did and grew to be just shy of 8 feet tall. Lesser known fact, Gonzales was drafted as a basketball player by the Atlanta Hawks in 1988, but his knees couldn't handle the stress that the sport demands and never made it to the NBA. Despite this, his name is forever associated with being one of the first Argentines to be drafted by an NBA franchise. His health gradually worsened throughout his 30s, and his career as a wrestler would be over by 1995. Because of gigantism, he would only live to be 44 years of age. Bam Bigelow was a star throughout the 80s and 90s because of his remarkable agility inside the ring, frequently performing moonsaults off the top rope despite the fact that he was well over 300 pounds. His unusual head tattoos and trademark wrestling attire also made him one of the most recognisable athletes on the roster at the time. He gained fame throughout the WWE, but also had success in ECW and WCW under the same name. Lesser known fact, he was single-handedly responsible for saving a group of children from a burning building in July of 2000, an incident which would see him hospitalised for over 2 months. Bam suffered from chronic back problems and heart disease later in life, but his death was actually a result of toxic levels of cocaine and anxiety medicine. Crash Holly. Now Crash, he was one of the cousins of Bob Hardcore Holly. He had a successful gimmick with the fans as a 22-time Hardcore champion, where he was responsible for the introduction of the 24/7 rule, meaning that the title was always on the line no matter where or what challenge for the title took place. He was given the nickname the Houdini of Hardcore for his ability to quickly regain the title after someone else was responsible for inflicting damage to the would-be champion. Crash would quickly scurry off backstage after a victory so that no one else could potentially challenge his newfound title reign. However, his career was cut far too short after he received divorce papers in late of 2003, and that was only after about 4 years of marriage, which led to suicide by a lethal combination of pills and alcohol. He was only 32 years of age.